Hello, and welcome everyone to our second BCXR Lab podcast. We're going to do introductions again, especially since we have our guest, Larry. Why don't we get immediately started with that? I am John. I'm going to be running the technology for the podcast today. I'm going to be helping transition between everything, and hopefully it'll look smooth and just absolutely buttery goodness on the recording side. And then here with me, we have...
I'm Larry Boykin. My title is Multimedia Tech Senior here at Bellevue College. I'm part of the eLearning department.
And my name is Ron Austin, and I'm the Digital Learning Manager with the college. And I went to school, high school with Larry, right? But that was a little while back. That was like 5 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, but we weren't in the same class.
That's right.
and if you can notice, I'm older than he is.
I don't know if it's very obvious on that one. But
I was a senior when he was a freshman.
Ooh, you got the seniority.
Yeah, and I got the pictures to prove it. Not
All
pretty, but I do have the pictures.
Yeah. So we're here to talk about media solutions today. Ron, I'm going to hand it over to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that means and get this rolling?
Sure. Okay, so e-learning is looking at having a name change, and that's because e-learning now encompasses multiple areas. So e-learning used to just focus on one area, but now XR Lab is joined at the hip with e-learning, as well as what used to be called Library Media Center. Is that right, Larry?
Yeah, actually Media Services was part of the Library Media Center, and then it got dissolved into e-learning.
Okay, yeah. And then there's also a new thing they're going to be creating, e-learning is going to be creating, called the Design Center. And we can talk more about that later at a future episode if there's an opportunity. But today I wanted to focus on media solutions, a little bit of history with that. Media solutions is the new name for the library, for the old name, the Library Media Center. But it actually wasn't the Library Media Center recently. So what is it now, Larry? I should know.
Well, it was Media Services. It was called the Media Services, and then it slowly disappeared. And then because Media Services was part of the Library Media Center, because we're in a building called Library Media Center, and of course we had Media Services, which was under the library. And now, as things went on, it got absorbed into e-learning, and now it didn't really have a name until now. It's called Media Solutions.
All right. So I'm curious a little bit about the history, and I know we only have like 10 minutes here, and we could probably talk about this for a full hour on its own. But a little bit about the history of media solutions, or
media services, the history of
media services. Yeah.
Okay, here's the real quickie of it all. I'll give you my 40 years on Bellevue College in the media service department. I'll make it quick. Media services, when I first got here, was basically audiovisual equipment deliveries to classrooms. So basically, at that time, we were delivering 16 millimeter projectors and slide projectors, and the beginning of video, like TV monitors with VHS tapes. Now, that was 40 years ago. And slowly we migrated into computers. So we're pushing PC carts into the classrooms, which was very challenging and tiring for me, being a student worker at the time, because when I came here, I was a student, and then slowly went from hourly to full-time.
Mm-hmm.
But slowly, as you know, as years went on, the technology came, and slowly we started to have, instead of us pushing carts around, we started having equipment put in the rooms. So, and that was pretty much at the analog situation. And now today, every classroom pretty much has a computer in it. It's now digital. And so so media services, like here and like other colleges, have been, dissolved, and it doesn't really exist anymore. So the job has kind of changed a bit. So we're no longer our main job before was pushing, AV equipment into the classrooms, and now that's pretty much gone. It's changed into other parts of it.
Yeah, so a lot of that seems to have been taken on by ITS, right?
Yeah.
So if someone has a problem with a podium, they don't come over to you. So do you still get phone calls at all from people who are like, my podium's not working? Can you help me?
No, not
No.
anymore. At the beginning, we
Yeah.
did, but not anymore. They now know they can contact IT. We still get the occasional one. In that case, then we would forward it to IT.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what we do in media services, media solutions. And so I have a list here, and we do equipment checkout. So what type of equipment checkout do we do?
Well, equipment checkout now is pretty much. We do have data projectors that they can hook up to their laptops if they want to take it. If they have a off-campus event and they're doing a presentation, we have that. We also check out a thing called Meeting Owl, which is a great thing if you're doing video conferencing. We also check out. We do still check out the digital cameras for faculty, but we also check them out also because we're also the main source of helping manage digital media arts programs equipment. So we're checking those out as well.
For the students.
Yeah, the students.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, we're also checking out quarterly laptops for specific programs like the iBest program, Project Idea program, and also Multicultural Services has asked us to check out their laptops as well.
Okay, and then Wacom tablets as well, that type of thing.
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah,
So that's great.
for specific programs.
Okay, and then another thing we do is we oversee Studio Q, and that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to get more use of that for faculty as well as students too. So what type of things are we thinking of doing in here? And that's a question that I already know the answer to, but I'm going to
Well,
ask.
why don't you tell us about this, Ron?
but I don't want to do all the talking. So
Well, we have this. Well, they can. Faculty can record themselves using a magic whiteboard to write their stuff down, and then they could stream it to their students, which was great now because before then we used to if a faculty wasn't going to be here, if they were on a trip and they didn't want their students to miss any classes, what we would used to do is we would put them in a study room, set up an old video camera, and record them doing their lecture, and then either give them the tape so that one of their the administrative assistant can run to the classroom, pop it in the old VHS machine in the rooms, if anybody remember those things, and play it, or I would go ahead and do it back in the day.
Okay. Hey, John,
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about how you've modified the room for what we have now?
Absolutely. Right now, we are in Studio Q, which is exactly as you were saying. We had the light board up, and it was used for online teaching by faculty just a couple weeks ago, right? Well, since then, I've come in here, and I've completely reshaped this room. Well, yeah, I'd say completely reshaped this room in order to be set up as we are right now, the three of us around a table with microphones all connected and with everything wonderfully set up on the software side as well. We are now able to sit here and run a three-person conversation, a three-person style podcast. And this is a resource that I want to, and I believe we are planning to open up to more people, especially as we get like the documentation and the required forms in place to allow it to be checked out and used.
So I think we could get that set up before the end of the academic year for sure.
Absolutely.
Because what do we have, like 4 weeks left?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you include this week, I think we have 4 weeks left.
All right. Well, let's make a goal to have it at the end of next week, and we're recording this almost at the end of May. So May 31st, and so I'll look to have stuff posted on our site, and that'll require having a Qualtrics forum and trying to get that set up and running it through eLearning. So that'd be awesome.
At which point it'll be a service that faculty could use or student groups could use Say that you're like running a club and you wanted to do a podcast style
Great idea.
media
Mhm.
event or project with your clubmates. That's would be a service that we could kind of offer.
I think
Right.
that'd be awesome. And a challenge would be like resetting up this space for the light board and then changing it back to this setup that we have now. And we'll just figure out how much of a challenge that is. In terms of use, I could see this being used more than the light board, but there are faculty who want to do like recordings, but it's only like once or twice a quarter. But if they want it, then we want to be able to set it up for them. So.
I did try and keep that in mind,
Yeah.
and so that's going to be part of the documentation process that we set up, hopefully by the end of the month, right? And not just how to use the space, but for our own staff members, how to transition between the two spaces, right?
Yeah.
That should also be documented.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's about it, Larry. I don't know. Anything else you want to add?
I think basically it's great we're using this technology, but we also have to remember when you're dealing with more faculty than students, faculty are kind of can be stubborn and reluctant to not want to be using, the new technology. I've always said this, I've said it many times, it's kind of like a riddle, an old classic riddle, but I'll paraphrase it and make it quick. Yeah, I feel like sometimes you have to be like a three-legged animal in a way, because you want to have one leg in the present to take care of what's going on, but yet you also want to look towards the future to see what's going on, especially with everybody talking about the AI, situation. So you want to have that. So you want to keep focusing on that, especially with the technology and the hardware. But yet you also still want to have a leg in the past,
For
because
sure.
because you're always going to have that one or two faculty that are so dead set on wanting to use old technology. Like
They want to still use the
They-
Super 8 camera?
no,
Super 8
not so
film
much the Super
camera?
8 camera. Yeah, might be the Super 8 camera, but I'll make a quick story about it.
Yeah.
We had a person that was doing a presentation in N201. This is like 5 years ago, and she wanted to show some images, and she brought these slide trays
Right.
for a slide projector.
Which is totally cool for an art project. If you want to do that for an art project, that would be really cool. But not so
Well-
much for business, right?
Well, she wanted it, and she didn't want to have these pictures scanned and do a PowerPoint and do it digitally. So back then they called me and said, well, we're panicking and all this other stuff. Luckily, we had a slide projector,
Right.
and we were able to do it. So that's one of the things we kind of do is even though we surplus a lot of equipment, you're supposed to do it every 5 years. We always seem to hold on to one piece of equipment and make sure it's working, just in
Right.
case of a situation that comes into that
Yeah.
comes to us like that.
Well, I started off by talking about how Larry and I went to the same high school, and where it kind of wraps around here is that you were in the TV program in high school at Nathan Hall High School, and they had a radio station
Yeah.
as well, and I was in that too, and so I'm sure we met. But like you said, I was a freshman, you were a senior, so it's not like we would have hung out at that age gap. But we both went through that together, and then we actually were both students here, but separately. You were about 8 years or 4 years, 4 years ahead of me. Pardon me. Well, no, but see, I didn't come here right after college. I took more time, and so it probably was about 8 years actually, and then I always looked up to you, because whenever I needed something, I had to come here and I had to ask you if I could check it out. So, and then anytime that I lost something or returned something late, which never happened, very, very rarely, but I would have to come back and
No, actually, we ended up. Let's be honest, we threw it in Lake Washington.
yeah.
It was really fun for those hydroplane races.
I'm sure that you've heard every story between you and Adam, who used to work here. So you guys probably have heard every story. But all right, well, thank you, John, for allowing us the opportunity to talk.
Yep.
Why don't we go around one more time, say our names, say goodbye to the camera, and that will be the end of
And I'm-
the second
Go, Ron.
And I'm here, right? So I'm going to say goodbye. My name's Ron Austin, Digital Learning Manager. And Larry, I think you're that one.
Hi, I'm Larry Boykin. You have a good day. Peace, love, joy, and soul to you. Bye now.
And I'm John. I'm glad to have run this on the technology side. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I think this was great. We'll see you in the next one.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.